everyone. Welcome to the Traveler Podcast, and appreciate again all the love and support throughout this whole process. Today, we're going to talk about how to build wealth through properties. So my first question to you, Chris, today is, what's your definition of wealth?
Defining wealth, several things. First of all, health is wealth. Okay?
It's not just money.
No, it's the opposite of what maybe we think, right? If it doesn't really matter if I have all the financial resources if I'm not able to enjoy them, because mentally I'm incapacitated, physically I'm incapacitated, I become ill, I become in a situation where I have something that affects me, I'm unable to function. Ask Charlie Munger. I mean, Charlie Munger was asked this question. Maybe you've heard this story before. A young man asked him, what is wealth? And he basically said, I'm 90-some years old. How much money would you want to trade places with me? Not enough.
Not enough.
There's not enough. So it starts with the core, right? If we don't take care of ourselves by what we ingest and what we inhale, what we drink, then we limit our ability to be wealthy, to enjoy life. There's certain things that we don't have any control over. There's certain things like in my system, in my body that inherently I have because of my DNA. And nothing to do with me, it has to do with my mom and my dad and their mom, their dad, their all that, right? Those are just things that are within our own bodies. But I can control what I ingest and what I drink and how I exercise, I can control those things. I have as just much time as you do. Time can be our enemy or time can be our friend. Depends how we use it, So the very first thing, the elementary, fundamental foundation, health is wealth. Contrary to whatever else you may think we were going to talk about, right?
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. Right? Health is wealth. And that's the first definition to me. The second part of that is something similar, and that's your time, right? You can't pay me enough money. You cannot pay me enough money to give up my time with my wife as we walk on a bike path or go on a hike for an hour or two. There's never going to pay me enough money to do that. My time and what I do with my time, right? You can't pay me enough money to take the things that I enjoy, that I can do with my friends, my family, my faith, service to others, those kinds of things. So you got your health, you got your time, and the last thing is the money part of it, right? But it doesn't matter how much money we have if we don't have the time and we don't have the health. Okay? Right now, I'm not going to get too many details, but right now I know a man who is a year older than me, and he's worth possibly $1 billion. Okay? And he's in hospice. And if I was to ask him to give up his money to gain his health, what do you think his answer would be? Of course.
Yeah.
Gladly. Right? Those are the facts of life, whether we like to admit it or not. Everybody wants to live. They want to enjoy life. They want to be healthy. And they think they want to be wealthy. And wealth is just simply a number. What's the definition of wealth? You tell me. What's your definition? I don't know. What's your definition? If you had $1 million in cash, would you consider yourself to be wealthy? Some people would. A lot of people would. 95% of this world would consider to be ultra wealthy if they had that kind of money. But in our culture and in our environment and where we are, not so sure. It's all relative to where we are. In my opinion, and again, I've traveled to many, many different countries and seen a lot of third world country stuff and even fourth world, if there is such a thing, of just horrific conditions and living conditions. And I'm going to tell you right now, in my humble opinion, every single American is wealthy. Every single American. From a monetary standpoint, we are loaded beyond belief, man. I mean, I can turn on my water anytime I want to take a drink. I can go to my refrigerator and decide, do I want leftover pizza or leftover spaghetti, or are we going out tonight? What are we doing? I can get in my car. Oh, I don't want to drive that one. I drive my other one. I have way more things than most people, and I am only one of 333 million in this country. So from a wealthy perspective, it's health, time, and monetary. The definition of wealth, I think, depends on who's talking and who's the audience and what's your definition. You can't buy time and you can't buy your health. So what's the balance between those two? We all have the same amount of time every day, and how we use it can be super wealthy or it can make us poor. Like we talked about in one of our episodes, this thing here can be very, very destructive if we don't use it how it's intended. But maybe that isn't how it's intended. Maybe it's supposed to get us sucked in, right? And track everything that we're doing, right? Right now it's listening to me, tell you these things and so on. So I think that's my definition of wealth. Maybe not what you were thinking, but that's my definition of wealth.
Has it changed
And what do you mean?
along the way? Is your definition?
Oh, most definitely. Oh, of course. Before it was probably money, 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 right? I mean, that's honest, right?
That's what I thought we were going to be talking about.
Of course, yeah. But again, this is the mentorship and the wisdom, hopefully, imparting on people that's not it at all. That's all backwards. You know what wealth is when you, let me give you an example real quick. Wealth is when you're in a third world country, and a little girl comes up to you and sits in your lap, and she smells like feces and urine. She's unbathed. She's unclean, and she just wants to love on you. That's wealth. That's gut-wrenching wealth, right? There's no money involved with that. And use your own example in your own life. Audience, Reggie, anybody. And tell me where something monumental in your life happened to you, where you felt that power, right, of serving others or being served, undeservedly so in most cases. That's wealth. The money part of it is the crazy it might seem, sitting here is probably the easiest part, because money is just a tool. And the minute we think that it's more than that, I think is when we shortchange ourselves. It's unfortunate, but there's a lot of things in this life that we can buy that we think will make us happy and wealth and all that, but yeah. So
How do we, as we're talking about building wealth, and we combine it with real estate?
Yeah, through property, of course.
How do we scale that?
Okay. It goes back to definition.
Okay.
You have to define how important your health is and what you're doing with that.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Define your time, how much time you're willing to commit to it, and then we can define the wealth part of it.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Got it.
So, for some people, $1 million in liquidity Liquidity meaning cash in the bank, I'm getting 4% or 5% of a CD is wealth. For others, it's 2 million. For others, it's I own my house, I get Social Security, and I have 500. For others, I want 10 million. I mean, whatever the definition is, it's usually a pretty substantial, amount of liquidity, not necessarily just assets, but liquidity as well.
As well, okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, the reason why I
It's a great convo, by the way. Great convo.
Yeah, because when the four, like, I read sometimes. Sometimes. When they talk on the Forbes list, like people that are on the Forbes list.
Yeah.
A lot of it is they talk about the amount of, when they say, hey, this person has reached like $1 billion. There's a lot of assets that they have. Then they really don't talk about the liquidity aspect of it. It's mostly the assets that they own. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that leads me to believe that wealth equals what you own based on the amount of assets you have, and not a lot of liquidity.
I think that from a monetary standpoint, your wealth is a combination of two things.
Of both.
It's your liabilities. Excuse me. Edit that, please. It's your assets minus your liabilities equals your net worth. Very simple. Your net worth. That defines a part of what your wealth is from a financial perspective, but also kind of encumbered within that is the liquidity aspect. How much liquidity, if you have $10 million of net worth of $10 million, but you only have $500,000 worth of liquidity, worth of cash, stocks, bonds, that you can get in 24 hours, or it might not be very much. But if you have $10 million worth of net worth, you have $1 million of liquidity, or $1.5 million, or whatever, then okay, now we have some gunpowder, we have some ammo where we can fire off the guns and make some decisions,
Okay.
So I think it's a balance, and a lot depends on the type of assets. With me, as we've talked about and shared, it's cash flow, it's income, or it's wealth building. It's one of those three, or a combination of those three.
How can somebody that's new, how can they create wealth through properties?
I think one property at a time. And here's the question. So let me use the example of, in the previous episode, I'm going to kind of reboot a little bit here. In the previous episode, I mentioned that we bought, in a period of like 2013 to 2015, 16, 17, maybe somewhere in there, we bought roughly 50 properties. And we had a net worth, we had a line of credit, which it had changed, so it was up to 500 to be able to purchase properties. And it was $1 million to be able to get the end loans on them, right? So if you, again, refreshing, going back, the 500 meant I had to have $100,000 in a CD or in an account that was assigned to the bank. That gave me the 500, that's the 20% down that I needed for the 500. That 500 gave me the opportunity to buy 1234 Main Street for $50,000. I took $20,000 of my own money. I had 70 in it. When it was done, it was worth 100. I then went and financed out of the $1 million line of credit, the 70, paid back the 50 off the line of credit, paid back myself the 20, right? And then I had, instead of 500, now I had the 500 back, right? And then $1 million, now it's down to 930,000. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I did throughout that process, things increased and the numbers increased in terms of liquidity, the initial influx of money I needed from the bank to pay cash, the end loans. By the time the wheel stopped and we were all done, I think I shared this, I had roughly, because I had siphoned some, sold some, flipped some, I think I had roughly $3 million worth of assets. And so here's what I did, okay? In 1921, I started looking at my numbers. And again, I shared this to you. I look at my numbers every single month. I know exactly where I am to the penny on what I owe and what I own, how much principal reduction, how much interest, how much cash flow, what the renters are paying, when their lease expires. All that information's in front of me that I analyze every single month, okay? On every single rental I have. I do that with every property, all right? It takes about a 2 to 3 hour time period to do all that because the spreadsheets are all right on. If there's a mistake, it gets tweaked. She kicks it back to me, and we throw it in the file. Okay. So I have. This is super important. I have all the way back to probably, I couldn't tell you, several years of doing this, right? And I keep all that. You can imagine. I have a summary of the year, so I can track each year. So, how to create wealth through property, one property at a time, is this way. Okay? So what I did in 1921, 1921, wow. I'd be super old if I was 1921. Yeah. In 2021, I started looking, I thought, I've got like 22, 24 properties left. Okay? I'm going to pay them off. I want to pay them off. In 30 months, I'm going to pay them all off. So here's what I did. Now keep in mind, I had 100, 110. I'm always bouncing around that number, right? I'd sell some, I'd build some. I took all the cash flow of all the properties. I said, wait a minute, this loan has a balance of $57,118. I'm just spitting a number out. I take the cash flow for 1 month and to pay that loan down. I owe 20 on it. And the next month, I paid it off, and then I put more money down on the next one. I did it again and again and again and again, and I shortened that. Instead of 30 months, I got that done in 26 months. Ooh. So then I owned, because I'd sold a couple. When all was done, I owned 20 units. Free and clear, no debt, and guess who paid them off?
The tenants.
I didn't pay any off. The tenants did. And I'm sorry to say, but I did not even send each one of them a thank you note. Not one. I should have. Shame on me.
Shame on you.
Shame on me. So that's one way to do it, because I didn't need the cash flow. All the cash flow would do, it gets lost in the system, right? We have these different companies, and we're just, so I just disciplined that in my brain and thought, let's just get these paid off. And then when I sell a property for 170, like I talked about in an episode, I have no debt. Holy smokes, that's a lot of money, Now, some people call that biggerpockets.com is the forum I was sharing, that if you're an investor, you can learn a lot of things on there besides me yakking on this thing, but biggerpockets.com, all kinds of information on there. And some of the people on those forums say that's dead equity. Really? It ain't dead to me. Because when I get a check for $170,000 because I sold a property, that's a lot of equity. That's a lot of money to me. Some people like to leverage. I'm a debt reduction guy, because to me, that's building wealth financially, because I'm having other people pay down my debt.
Right.
And if I don't need the cash flow, especially if you're buying your first property, you don't need the cash flow. You do not need that. Take it and pay down your debt. And then buy another one, and then you got 2 cash flows. Pay down the first one, and you got a third one, and then pay down that one. Pay down the debt. You don't need the money. But yet, what'll happen is, in 10 years, 8 years, 12 years, you got a 6-year-old boy, he's ready to go to college. You want to pay for his college, you sell a property, and here's your college. Or you want to just start to think about reinvesting. It's just all kinds of ways to do it. That's just one way that I was able to achieve it.
When you mentioned debt equity, that other people might have said,
Debt equity, yeah.
I actually thought of the capital gains that could be showing up at that point when you have free and clear properties. Am I missing something?
The capital gain is only based upon what you depreciated the asset to. Okay. So if you bought a property, let's say, I like to use 100,000 because it's easy. Let's say you bought a property for 120. Okay? And the building that you get to depreciate was worth 100. So you get to depreciate that. I'm just going to round it to 30 years. All right. So you get to depreciate that building $3,333 year one, year two, year three, year four. That goes down every year.
Correct.
When you sell that property for 200, okay, let's just say you've done repairs and you had to replace carpet, you've added to it, you initially paid 120, now you have 140 in it. Your capital gain is 60. However, the depreciation you took up to the 120, your initial depreciation that you took, your initial purchase price, up to 120, that's considered ordinary income. You get taxed on ordinary income from that.
Oh.
And then from the 140,
Yeah.
then you get taxed at capital gains. Capital gains meaning typically 20%.
Okay.
Ordinary income as high as 37.5%. 37% right now. Makes sense?
Makes a lot of sense now. See, that's what I was kind of like, wait, why that equity? I see a lot of equity there when you're free and clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are we at?
Halfway.
24.
24th. 24. Okay.
Yeah, it's halfway.
Okay. How do I create wealth through? We said, okay, so we pretty much hit all 4 questions.
I have one we can maybe throw in.
Yeah.
How do you manage a work-life balance so you can make the most of your wealth but still build financial wealth?
How do you balance your work life and yet create wealth?
Yeah, essentially. How is your wealth? How do you,
Yeah.
How do you balance work life?
How do you balance your work life and create wealth at the same time?
Here's a good question. How do you balance work life while still creating financial wealth?
You let the tenants do it. Next question. No, seriously, that's the beauty of residential. It's almost like a sleeper in a way. It's kind of like a sleeper, right? You don't even think about it. Do you know how many people have a spreadsheet that shows them the actual principal reduction on their loan as part of their spreadsheet? If you ask the investors that are listening right now, very few. They don't think about it. They don't think about it. They think of the cash flow. They think of the appreciation. They don't think of the debt reduction. So, I mean, if you have a good team that surrounds you, right, then you're able to do this much, much more effectively. If you don't have a good team, but you're really, really good with these, then you can do a lot of cool things as well. However, you have to really, really, really be careful with these. Because I know so many guys that it has to be perfect. I said, are you living there? No. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be right. I'm not saying you cut corners. I'm not saying you do a crummy job. I'm not saying you do an inferior workmanship, craftsmanship. I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be right. You can buy a furnace. Yesterday I got a quote for a new HVAC system.
Oh, 10 grand.
$8,900. One quote.
Yeah.
The other quote, $6,500. And which one do you think I went to? I know them both. Done business with both. Both reputable.
Both reputable.
Both reputable.
Wow. If you've done business with both, common sense.
Why are you taking so long to answer the question? Of course I did the $6,500.
There you go.
Yes. Yes. But why? The other guy had a 96% this and a 14 SEER that and a... Does it spit out air conditioning? Yes.
Yeah,
Does it work? Yes. It's a rental. It works just fine.
There you go.
It works just fine. You You have to be careful because the guys that are in the trades and that work with these, sometimes they get caught up with these instead of this. They forget about HIP National. I mean, you got to take care of HIP National. Sometimes HIP National will not allow you to buy a 96% efficient furnace. You're not going to get more rent for a 96% furnace. Sorry, not going to happen. You're not going to get more rent because you have a name brand window. Sorry. You're not going to get more rent, because you basically handmade the stairway. You're not going to get more rent, and just fill the blank in. It's a business. You treat it like a business, okay? The other aspect of wealth that we haven't talked about that's critical that we share concerning property, managing inefficiencies. Managing inefficiencies.
I was going to ask you about that.
Managing inefficiencies, okay? Let's talk about the managing for a minute, okay? Just a few tips that are simple, but yet super powerful, super effective, right? Remember the time, right? Time is your enemy, time is your friend, okay? Since we've been talking, I got a text, I got a closing tomorrow, okay? We're supposed to do weekly inspections on our properties. Somebody didn't do a weekly inspection.
Weekly inspection?
Weekly inspection on our properties when they're vacant.
Oh.
When the properties are vacant, when we're selling something, typically a property is vacant. We don't sell properties when someone's living there because the tenant, you don't know what the conditions are and so on.
Correct.
So we'd ask a tenant to leave. We don't renew their lease. We sell one of our assets.
Okay.
This particular asset, the realtor called me right before we started this session and said, we went in the unit. The heat was on. And it's 89 degrees in the unit. Well, I don't think the air's working. She said, well, okay. It's 89. I flipped it on, but I don't think it's working. So my guy's right there. He's 5 minutes away. He's going to go there. He's going to check it out. And he's going to tell me, hey, Chris, there's something wrong with the air. Got to get a system in here. We're closest tomorrow. Okay, no problem. We'll do that. Or he goes over there. He sits there for an hour. He waits. It starts to go down to 83 and then 78 and pretty soon it's fine. So we'll know, right? Management and efficiencies. Every single week, we have a list of our vacancies, okay? Whether they're vacancies because they haven't been rented, which is very, very rare, and we'll talk about that with the efficiency part, or they're vacant because we're putting them up for sale. They're either sold or they're ready to list for sale, okay? Every week, we do a weekly inspection. What do? We check the air, make sure the air is working. We check the furnace, make sure the furnace is on. We check the lights. We make sure that the furnace filter is clean. We make sure all the bulbs are on. We check the battery, make sure the battery's working on the system. We look at all the plumbing, just make sure everything's good. Place is secure. Well, guess what? Somebody got an F. They didn't do it. They didn't check it. So that's a conversation we have to have with somebody. They didn't check it. It's my fault because I didn't ask them to check it. I assumed that they knew to check it, but they didn't because I didn't tell them to. So I can't assume. That's me. I didn't manage, right? So the managing part of it is critical because if you manage, then you can create efficiencies. Another example of management, okay? So if we have a lease and your monthly rent is $1,595, the lease states on the lease, monthly rent is $1,750 or $1,795. People go, well, I thought the rent's $1,595. Read the next sentence. If you pay on or before the first of every month, that's the rent. You're going to pay on the first of the before, aren't you? Yes, then that's your rent. We don't have late fees. We have discounts. If we go to a court of law, guess which one holds? The $1,795, not the $1,595. That's a freebie.
Learn something today.
Yeah, that's an easy one, right? Very effective. I've never had a judge, in the minuscule times we've even been to court, I've never had a judge say, oh, no, you got it. No, $1,795, that's what the lease says. That's what they have to pay, okay? And when it comes to inspections, like you thought I was talking about inspections in terms of us looking at units, we have it right in our lease. You're entitled to inspect the unit once a month. They don't need to be there. They don't need to be there. I have the key. I can go in and check to make sure that, the place is in good shape, And there's other things too. For example, washers and dryers. We charge extra for washers and dryers. We charge $50 a month. Some people do $60 or whatever. We get $50 a month for washers and dryers. In 18 months, or a little over 18 months, the tenants paid for a new washer and dryer. Okay? Pet policies. We don't mind pets, but we have a pet deposit. And we charge extra for pets. You have to be careful with the whole pet thing because of service dogs and those kinds of things. You have to make sure you follow those types of laws in the city, states that you're working in and things like that. And sometimes you're not allowed to do that because of the situation with them. But those are just 2 or 3 different things. But efficiencies basically mean that in the lease that you have, and this is management and efficiencies both, and this is about wealth. Because remember the second thing about wealth is your time. So your time means you have to be efficient with what you're doing, right? You have to be efficient in how you handle things, right? So there's about, I would guess, 10 to 12, maybe 15 things that if you called my staff and you had a service issue, they would ask you over the phone a series of questions on 10 or 12 of those different things to try to troubleshoot that right over the phone. Sometimes the battery's out in the smoke detector. Sometimes the battery is out in the HVAC system, in the thermostat, right? Sometimes the leak is because of humidity, like these hot conditions. Sometimes the toilet has that water, that humidity, and people think there's a leak. No, there's not a leak. Sometimes, fill the blank. Sometimes it's really simple. Sometimes the garage opener gets stuck and it won't shut. Well, there's an obstruction with the eye down below. There's an obstruction there. It could be something simple. Sometimes it's a spider web, something simple. It's not causing, it'll come and it will come right back up. Well, there's something wrong with the opener. Well, go out for the Windex, clean the eye, clean the other eye, make sure there's a nice laser that goes in between so you can prevent those things. Little things like that, when it comes to management, create efficiencies. Efficiencies create time savings. Time savings create wealth. If you create time savings through efficiencies in management, then you're able to buy 2 properties with the same amount of time. Or 4. Or, whatever your comfort level is.
Do you do inspections on vacant properties that are Class A? Or, because it seems like all your properties are not just Class A.
No, they're not Class A. I have Class A and C. I don't have any Bs.
Okay.
Mine are A's and C's mainly.
Okay.
There's a few B's, but mainly A's and C's.
And you still do a monthly?
No, I don't necessarily do monthly. Depends on the tenant.
Depends. Okay.
Depends on the tenant. and that's a whole nother thing. So in the future, for example, I'll just use a random date. So February 5th or February 28th, we call tenants or email them that are expiring on April 30th.
Okay.
We give them a 60-day notice for their rent increase or to find out if they're leaving or not. And if they are, then we start the process of trying to release their property. In our leases, it allows us to show the property. In fact, a lot of times, they show the property for us. It's in their lease. And our efficiencies are phenomenal. We can turn a unit from the time you move out, let's say August 30th. September 4th, Joe's moving in. It takes us 3 to 4 days to turn a unit.
What if you decide not to renew the lease?
I'm talking about when somebody's leaving.
Oh, we did. Okay.
When somebody's leaving. Okay, and we're re-renting the unit.
Got it. 3 to 4. Okay.
3 to 4 day turnaround, maybe 5. Okay, that basically goes. We do an inspection real quick, and when they do the check, we have a checklist. We do an inspection. What needs to be done? She gives it to me, or gives the service. Service handles it. They do everything in one day. The next day they paint it. The next day they clean it and shampoo it in the afternoon, and we're done. And we're ready for the next day. Yeah. It's all efficiencies. You do not want to wait until the tenant moves out to find out if you're going to lease it again. You must do it in 60 days ahead of time. Otherwise, you lose a minimum of a month's rent, which is silly. There's no reason to. You have to do it 60 days ahead of time and find out when they're moving, if they're moving, or if you're going to sell it, then obviously give them a 60-day notice. But you have to do it 60 days ahead of time. If you don't, you're just basically, you're losing money. It's just silly. No reason to. You have to manage that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Learning quite a bit here with some of these, because it seems that means you always have so that means you have operating procedures in place for just in case somebody, let's say when somebody of your team, is not doing what they're supposed to do, or if they leave, can you just plug somebody in that's part of the efficiency process?
Yes. I have all these forms and all these that we've developed over the years, I mean, keep in mind, we build some pretty high-end stuff home-wise, and I got a contract on my homes that we build. It's 2.5 pages. It's nothing. An attorney sent me an email this morning. He wanted me to change 2 things. We told him 3, 4, 5 times we're not changing anything.
We've been told the attorney that?
Oh, yeah. We've been doing this for 15 years. We're not changing anything on the contract. And so he asked us to sign an addendum. And he verified 2 things. They're already in the contract. Okay, sure, I'll sign that. Makes you feel better that you earned your money. No problem. It's already in there. So,
okay.
But same thing. We have forms, procedures, spreadsheets. Everything is system. And we create everything by hand. That's just me, the control freak that I am, right? You can buy software and you can go crazy with all the tech stuff if you want to do that. That's not my world, My daughter, Chris, I hope she'll listen to this. She said to me one day, I don't know, 3, 4 years ago, Dad, you really need to learn how to use Excel. And I said, why? He said, well, because it's really spreadsheets and this and cells and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, Krista, I do not need to learn how to use Excel. Why not, Dad? Because that's what X does, and that's what she does, and that's what he does. They do that for me. I don't need to do those things. They can do those things. They're good at that. I'm not. I'm not good at that. Here's my Excel. Let's see, where's that? Here, right here. That's my Excel. Right there. That's all the Excel I need, right there. Neat.
Crazy hair.
You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hopefully, with some of the comments that are going to be coming in, people are understanding that, they're getting information from somebody that's been doing this for 40 years.
Yeah, it's trial and error, and hopefully we don't have a whole lot of errors, But it's just experience, and it's just cutting the fat out of some of this stuff, If you can cut the fat, me, that's one of my favorite sayings. If you cut the fat out of this stuff, then basically that means that you're creating, opportunities for yourself, One of the things that we haven't covered probably enough concerning wealth is down payments. And we talked about FHA. And let's just say that somebody lives in their home and they're comfortable in their home, but they want to do real estate, right? You can get a home equity loan, a HELO, it's called. Home equity line of credit, basically, HELOC. You can get a HELOC. You can use that equity in your home to put down on the rental property. You can leverage both those things. You can do that. That's one way that investors that already have a home start off doing. There's 2 different types of investors, right? Those that are really kind of starting off. A couple of avenues to do that. We talked about the FHA. You live in a home for a year. You rent it. You buy the next one. Then you rent it. And you buy the next one. You just keep doing that, And there's, again, talk to a lender that can help you with some of those ideas, some of those things. But the second is somebody who's already, basically, they already own a home. Maybe they own 2. Maybe they own a vacation home, and they own their own where they live, their primary residence. And they want to start in real estate. Then there's a couple ways to do it. You can basically take money, out of a savings account, put 20% down, or you can get a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. And you can take that money, and then you can use that for the down payment to buy the first rental. So all kinds of different ways. So the question was, how do you create wealth through property? A lot of different ways. We talked about the health, we talked about the time, we talked about the money part. And there's like little veins underneath each one of those to kind of create, the opportunities for yourself.
But the efficiencies also.
Oh man, efficiencies is under the management. Yeah, that's like Mongo critical, So it's exciting because, if this meter reader right here, this guy can do it, and then anybody can do it. That's the way I look at it, you know. So.
Well, that's been a great episode, just kind of talking about wealth building. I think it's good for the next time to kind of switch over from buying versus building and what we need to know.
Yeah, that'll be a good lesson.
Yeah.
There's a good lesson there. Some really cool information about that we can share on some of those ideas. 100%. Yeah.
So tune in next week to Traveler. See you guys. Thanks for tuning in.